Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am BorderWise, and welcome to another crazily unsponsored video promoting a particular video game, which every once in a blue moon I do. And as you've probably already guessed, the game that I'm shamelessly plugging today is Path of Exile. So, well, I've mentioned this already. This is just to be absolutely clear. This video is not sponsored. It is not a paid review or anything like that. This is just me basically saying why you should play Path of Exile if you haven't already. And there's a number of things to address first, and one of which is, BorderWise, this game is like 8 years old. I think it first came out in like 2013. Like, what are you doing? This is old news. And you're kind of right, it has been around for a while. And I, in fact, played it shortly after it was first released. So this is 2013-ish, it was a while ago. And I stopped, I didn't stick with it very long, but recently I've come back to it. And I'm loving it. Like, I am very far into the game. I'm on what? I can't actually remember what act I'm on, but it's like it's the kind of game where it's just like, there's just acts after acts after acts. The devs keep adding stuff. I don't actually remember why I stopped playing it back in the day. But either I'm a different person with different taste in games now, or the game has been improved immeasurably. And like the latter makes sense because the game has had a lot of updates since then. So, I guess another disclaimer is this is a hacky slashy loot fest kind of game. Like, it's basically, this game is kind of a spiritual successor to Diablo 2 because the story behind it, in a very paraphrased form, is basically a few Diablo fans over here in beautiful Aotearoa, New Zealand, were kind of annoyed at the design direction that Diablo 3 was taking back the day, and they decided, screw this, we're going to make our own video game with blackjack and hookers and just be incredibly grimdark all the time, and we're going to have skill gems, and we're going to have a massive passive skill tree, and we're going to have a free-to-play model that works way better than the freaking Diablo 3 auction house. And by gum, they succeeded. It's a success story in this otherwise cruel and uncaring world. So, that since I've mentioned it, like, well, it's free to play. That's one reason to, at the very least, give it a go. It costs you absolutely nothing to log in, well, to create an account with grinding gear and download the game and start playing it. And spending money is genuinely 100% optional. This is not like other free-to-play games like, say, on mobile, Raid Shadow Legends. There, I've mentioned it. Where's my sponsorship? Just kidding. And things like World of Warships, World of Tanks, War Thunder and stuff like that, where it's essentially pay to win. This is nothing like that, in case you aren't aware. Like, pretty much all the purchasable things in Path of Exile are things like cosmetics and just quality of life things that do not impact actual gameplay at all. The closest thing to it is just, I guess, buying extra tabs for like your stash, so to speak. Not your weed stash, I'm talking about like your item stash. And that's basically it, really. And like, everything else is optional and cosmetic. You can change the look of certain armor pieces, you can have auras or like, you know, angel wings or stuff on your character. You can, you can have pets. That's the few times which I've decided to like spend money on Path of Exile. There's pets. I have a Weta, and I have a Luminous Moth, and I breezed through I actually was reading through the list of pets you can buy for Path of Exile, just as kind of research for this video, and because I was thinking of like cracking a joke as like, yeah, if you really want a pet chicken, you can get one. And then I was like, hang on, wait a minute, can you get a pet chicken? And as it turns out, yes, you can. The devs have thought of everything. So yeah, that's basically it. And it's a model that definitely works and doesn't actually, impact the player base negatively at all. Like, if you want to buy, you can, but if you don't, that's absolutely fine. And so, the game not only avoids the usual irritating things to do with free-to-play models, but it also avoids the usual action RPG irritation. So, one of my pet peeves with things like, like Diablo, so Diablo 2 in particular, which I have played back in the day. Things like Grim Dawn or Torchlight or stuff like that. I've played way too many of these damn games. But one of which has got the usual RPG problem, is that your first character will suck, because you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what abilities are actually good, and you don't have a build plan, so to speak, unless you look up one beforehand, and where's the fun in that? But the way skills work in Path of Exile kind of avoid that, because your skills are gems that you slot into your equipment. So respecking your character is, rather than just, you know, deleting your character and starting all over again, you just basically have to go find slightly different items and get slightly different skill gems, and then slot one into the other, and away you go. I've got two characters I'm playing with on Path of Exile right now. One of them is a duelist, the other's a witch/necromancer. And with the witch, I actually subtly changed my playstyle part of the way through. And it wasn't really much of a headache. It went from minions and lightning, with just specifically magic slots, or blue slots, I guess, and then just branched out into minions of other colors, so to speak. And, you know, not a problem. And the passive skill tree also kind of is kind of noob-friendly, I feel. Like, I have heard of people getting put off by just how big and scary the passive skill tree is, but really, don't be intimidated by it, because when in doubt, you just go for skills that increase your basic stats, and you'll be most of the way fine. And you just, whatever abilities you like and are using a lot, just get the stuff that benefits them. So basically, yeah, the witch I'm rolling with now, which is technically my third Path of Exile character, because there was the witch I rolled up back in 2013, which I since deleted because fresh start. Then I rolled a Templar, wasn't too fond of the starting abilities, or the fact the dude doesn't wear pants. And so I rolled a witch, who also doesn't wear pants, but starts with zombies, and that's great. And where was I going with this? But yeah, so third Path of Exile character is like, okay, yeah. This is working. I get a feel for this now. Not that you need to then roll like 3 characters in a row to figure out what you're doing. Like, you know, like I said, like, if you just stick to the obvious stuff in the passive skill tree, you'll be fine. And even if you do make a bit of a whoopsie, you get plenty of passive skill reset points. I don't think I've used a single one so far, but the game throws a lot of them at you. You get them as quest rewards, and there's an item that you can purchase or find, which grants you passive skill reset points. And just like it's easy to respec your character should you decide that it's not going in a direction you like. And you can build your character, like, really however you like. There's basically no restriction via ability or passive skills. Like, your starting character class just determines, like, the skills you start with, so to speak, like when you spawn on the barren shores of Rayclast. And it also determines where you start on the passive skill tree, and that's it. And you can wander off in whatever direction you like, so to speak. And speaking of wandering around, my goodness, I am segueing well in this video. And then I just lost it. Anyway, wandering about, the plot and the world building of this game is noticeably of a higher standard like, compared to other ARPGs. So it's way better than freaking Diablo. Like, comparing the plot of Path of Exile to Diablo 3, it's not even close. Path of Exile is just way more thought out. It's better written, and the plot constantly kind of thickens and builds on itself. And it actually feels like there's more at stake, which is weird, because Diablo 3, if I recall, was basically literally about demons about going to destroy the world. And, like, I don't know, spoiler alert, Path of Exile is a similar plot, but yeah, it's like the world's ending, but it feels more compelling in Path of Exile. It feels more immediate. It feels more serious. Helped along in no small part by just how gritty the world is. This is bleak. This is very bleak. The game starts with you being essentially thrown off a ship into exile. Hence the game's name, Path of Exile. You start as a nobody. You are a good-for-nothing, a criminal exile till Rayclast, and then, like, well, you gotta first, well, survive, and then become a real butt-kicking badass. And there's also throughout the game, just with the supplementary, like, you know, you find, it's a typical RPG video game thing, you find notes, you find text all over the place, and, like, dialogues by people who inexplicably decided to write down what they were feeling at that exact moment that the world was ending. But I don't mind, it's a handy narrative device, and there's a real weighty feeling of history, so a lot of games, like, you have the whole trope of, like, oh, the fallen empire, the, like, glory days, but they're gone. Path of Exile raises the game on that. There's at least 3. So, if I'm remembering correctly, there's, like, the Val, the Asmiri, and the Eternal Empires were all successive empires on Rayclast, and they all fell one after the other, which, as a history nerd, like, I appreciate greatly, because that's kind of how these things go. Like, it's how, just you have, I don't know, like, you have, like, in the Mediterranean, for instance, you have the Macedonian Empire, then you have the Roman Empire, then you have the Byzantine Empire, then you have the Ottoman Empire, and just, like, it's empires replacing each other bit by bit over time. Well, not bit by bit, it's just, you know, it goes back and forth a bit. But anyway, it's a real feeling of history. It feels, even though you're in a very artificial game world, like, because there's just endless enemies for you to murder over and over again, and they constantly barf up items that for some reason they weren't using on you, and skill gems and stuff like that. The world still feels kind of believable and real despite of that. And that is not an insignificant achievement, because ARPGs usually, like, you know, they're very video gamey in that sense. They don't really feel immersive, usually. But Path of Exile, you can kind of get drawn into a little bit, because, just, I don't know, the setting all fits together, and the gems you use for skills, virtue gems, are actually part of the plot, so it's one of those things where the gameplay and the narrative kind of interact a little bit. They don't, you know, they don't just slap one onto the other and call it a day. And speaking of that kind of seamless integration of stuff, the voice acting and the characters in this game is really something to behold. I enjoy immensely just listening to all the characters in the game. They're all pretty memorable, even if I don't remember their names, but that's because, you know, I've got a pretty terrible memory for names to begin with, and also I've played too many video games, and, you know, video game names tend to sound the same. But there's 2 in particular in Path of Exile that really stand out, and one of them is Einar, who is, I guess, the Beastmaster. He's a super awesome dude. He's essentially the Rayclast equivalent of a crazy prepper, like those people who, you know, stockpile guns and baked beans for the end of society, and except he does it by helping you hunt down beasts to put in a menagerie, and then you sacrifice them in order to gain items from, like, the old ones, as he called them, or was the first ones, I forget. But anyway, he is delightfully and charmingly crazy, and you can tell whoever voice acted him, I forgot to look that up, was having a ball doing it, so absolute cracker job with Einar grinding gear, if you're watching this. But yeah, so that's one of them, and just like my other favorite character is Emperor Izaro, who is, like, not to spoil anything, there's a way, the Ascendancy trials, the Labyrinth trials in Path of Exile is basically, okay, so you want to level up your character even more? Want access to special skills? Well, you gotta unlock the Labyrinth. So you gotta pass the Trials of Ascendancy in various dungeons, and you unlock them, and then you unlock the Labyrinth, and once you beat the Labyrinth, you get access to extra skills. And again, this is woven into the narrative a bit. It's basically, the plotline is Emperor Izaro, back in the day. Which empire was he part of? He was one of the Eternal Emperors. He didn't have a worthy successor, and so he was like, you know what, we're gonna do this old school. We're gonna do this the way the Asmeri emperors did, and we're gonna have a trial to have a worthy successor here, because goodness knows I don't trust freaking anybody. And the writing and setting for the labyrinth is something I absolutely love. I love playing through the labyrinth. It's like, it's a real hoot. It really confused me the first time I did it, but that's, well, it's a labyrinth. It's supposed to do that. But his voice really is awesome, and I'm really regretting right now not looking up who voiced him, because again, cracking good job. And basically, my thoughts on Emperor Zaro is not only would I vote him into public office, I would buy a car from him. That's how good his voice is. I mean, just listen to this.
The just goddess presides over us all. The future of the Empire rests in her even hands.
Finally, one reason why you should give Path of Exile a go is because a lot of the things I've just mentioned, so, like, I believe Trials of Ascendancy were one of them, and just Einar and stuff like that, I believe that these things, and for those of you who know, correct me if I'm wrong, they were not part of the game when it was first released. They were added in updates and events afterwards. And so, this is a living game. The developers are constantly working on it, they're constantly adding new stuff and interesting stuff, and an awful lot of the cool things you will now see in Path of Exile after about 8 years of constant development came from League. So temporary events, so to speak, where they introduced a new mechanic or a feature or something like that, and the ones that the community really liked stuck around and became permanent features for free. So they're not DLC, they're like major updates which add groovy things to the game, and they're just there now for posterity. You're welcome. So, like, you know, it's a game that, like, I don't know, you can kind of tune in and out of. So once you beat the main campaign, so to speak, you can kind of dip your toe back in whenever there's an update and go like, oh, cool, nice. And just the combination of everything, like particularly the fact that you can like wander anywhere on the passive skill tree, the fact that any character class can use any abilities thanks to the fact that it's item related, and the fact that the game constantly updates means you can play this thing pretty much forever. And I suspect I'm going to. In fact, the only major reason I ration how much Path of Exile I play is because I get sucked in really easily. So it's the kind of thing where it's been a long time. Well, it's not been a long time, but there's not many games I've played in recent years where it's got that feeling of just 5 more minutes. Just okay, I just gotta play for 5 more minutes. I gotta like, and it's the double whammy of either the narrative is like, I want to see what happens next, or the gameplay element of, I just want to level up one more time, or I just want to clear this area, or just stuff like that. It's the kind of game in which you want to keep playing because there's always something like more to do, so to speak, something new to see. So yeah, that's basically it. So like, yeah, Path of Exile, jolly good game. I do recommend it. That was kind of the whole point of this video, which I do every so often, weirdly enough, at random times. So, yeah. So, I guess thank you to Grinding Gear for making this lovely ARPG and sticking with it for 8 years. Like, can we just appreciate that for a moment? 8 years is a long time to stick with any form of media. And, like, but holy crap, it's paid off, I think, a lot. I love the heck out of this. But, yeah, so thank you to Grinding Gear for doing an awesome job on this video game. And thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon or YouTube membership if you like. It really helps, and there's fun perks in it for you. And thank you to all my current supporters, and I will see you next time in whatever video comes next, or whatever video I decide to make on recommending games next. I never know how to end these darn things. Farewell!